Hey friends, welcome back for another chapter of Chocolate Fever. Last time we met, we read chapter 5 where the doctor, Dr. Fargo, figured out that Henry's spots were chocolate. And he ended the chapter with, "The boy, it seems, is nothing more than a walking candy bar." Now we're going to move on to chapter 6, which is Catch That Boy. Interesting. There was more excitement than Henry had ever seen. All kinds of doctors were examining him now, poking and prodding, as if he were not a boy but a pincushion. And Dr. Fargo was bounding about the room, talking about chocolate fever, a new disease, making medical history, and things like that. Henry was tired and afraid. He wanted to be left alone. He wanted all the doctors to go away. He wanted to be home. He wanted, in fact, to be just about any place in the world except this hospital. So he did something simple. Something his heart told him he had to do to survive. He jumped off the examining table and began to run. Look at this picture. You can see Henry right there with all his spots. And everyone's running after him. He began to run. In a flash, he had bolted through the doorway and was running down the long corridor. Behind him, he heard shouts of, "Stop! Catch that boy!" Two nurses at the end of the corridor tried to catch him, but Henry was simply too quick. He dodged past them and darted down the stairwell. Down, down, down he went, down 3 whole flights of stairs and out into the main lobby of the hospital. Ahead of him, a guard at the door held out an arm. Running as hard as he could, Henry crashed through his gasps and into the street. Without pausing to think where he was heading, Henry ran. As he was about to turn the corner, he looked back. There was a whole army of people pursuing him. Doctors in white coats, nurses, guards blowing whistles, policemen waving their arms, and behind him he could see Dr. Fargo. Henry didn't wait to see any more. "Legs," he said. "Don't fail me now." And with that, he turned the corner and took off down the street. He ran and ran until he had no breath left. And then he ran some more. His legs flashing in the afternoon sun, Henry darted down one street and up another. He had no idea where he was. He had no idea where he was going, but still he kept running. People stared at him as he whizzed by. A few even raised their hands as if to stop him or say something, but Henry kept right on running. After a long while, he couldn't see or hear any of the people running after him. "I must be far ahead of them by now," Henry thought. But suddenly, up ahead at the corner, a police car flashed by with its siren screaming. "They must be after me," he thought with alarm. "I am a wanted man." Sick at heart, Henry pushed himself to run faster. His head hurt, his side hurt, his legs hurt, but he kept running. His lungs hurt, his eyes hurt, even his hair began to hurt, but Henry kept running. At least he could run no more. At last he could run no more. He was finished. Done. He had to rest, and to rest he had to hide. Without thinking about it, Henry ran down the large grassy alley that lay between 2 white houses. At the end of the alley was a large garage with one door partly open. Henry sneaked in and looked around. There was an automobile parked inside, but not a person in sight. With his last bit of strength, he flopped down on the floor beside the automobile. "A fine mess you're in now," he thought. "You've run away from a hospital. The police are after you. Your mother must be scared to death with worry. And you have a disease no one has ever heard of before." The more he thought about his predicament, the sadder Henry became. A lump rose in his throat. A tear ran down his cheek. A sob escaped from his lips, and he was crying, sobbing out loud, really crying. He cried for a few moments because he was so sad. He cried some more because he was lost. And then he cried for a long, long time because everything had become so hopeless. At last, when he could cry no more, Henry dried his eyes and tried to think about his situation. He would not go back to Dr. Fargo in the hospital. Of that, he was certain. Nothing on Earth or any other planet could make him do that. But what if he went home? What would his mother and father do? They would take him back to Dr. Fargo in the hospital. They would have to. Never, Henry said out loud. Never, never, never. In the dim light of the garage, Henry looked at the big brown spots on his arm and began to hate them. Stupid spots, he thought. Why did you have to happen to me? Feeling angry, he stood up and began to pace the half-empty garage. I can't go home, he thought, and I won't go back to the hospital. All right, then, I'm on my own. Somewhere there must be a place for me. A place to go until these stupid big brown spots disappear. A place far away where no one has ever heard of me, or the hospital, or Dr. Fargo, or my parents. Feeling much braver now with things somehow settled in his mind, Henry lay down to rest for a while before setting off on his journey. That's the end of chapter 6. Chapter 7 is in the schoolyard. Wow, chapter 6 was such a shocking chapter. I was not expecting Henry to run away at all. Go ahead and answer the question on our classroom, and we hope you guys enjoyed that chapter.